Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Makazi Fashion. Today I'll be teaching you how to make a basic skirt pattern. Kindly like, share and subscribe. So let's get started on this, making a basic skirt pattern. What you will need tape measure, you will need a pencil, you will need a square ruler, you will need a straight ruler, you need a curved ruler. I'm using permanent markers if you're drafting directly on the fabric. You will need the tailor's chalk. You will also need a calculator. You can use this type or you can use a calculator from your phone. It's still okay. So let's get started. In my case, the measurements that I'm using today, I have a waist of 32 inches, hips of 42 inches, bust span of 3.5, or you call it nipple to nipple measurement. You need measurement from hips from waist to hips, that is 9 in my case. And then the skirt length I'm using is 224. So let's get started on doing this. When I'm starting, I will leave 1 inch up here. So you measure 1 inch from the top and mark that, and then 1 inch here and mark that, and then join those two. As you can see, I had already outlined my pattern with a pencil first, just to make this video shorter. So I'm leaving 1 inch up there, and then I will start with doing the vertical measurements. My waist to hips is 9, so I'm marking 9 here. Remember, you're starting from this line here. You're not starting from the start of the page or the paper. And then you go again, you mark 9, and then you square across. Like that, okay? And then you measure the length of the skirt, which in my case is 24 inches. So 24 inches, here it is. Again, I measure again 24 inches and square across. Now after doing the vertical measurements, we are going to measure the body round measurements, and we are going now to the waist. What you do, waist you divide by 4 plus 1 inch, which is the data allowance, okay? So in my case it is 32 inches. You divide by 4, it gives you 8 inches, right? So it's gonna give me 8 inches, which is gonna be here, and then I add 1 inch for my data allowance, okay? And then I go to the hips. On the hips, I'll do hips measurements, which is round measurements, which is 42, divide by 4. Okay, 42 divided by 4 is giving me 10.5, and here we don't add any allowance because we don't have a dot at the hips, so that is going to be exactly 10.4, 10.5. So there it goes. Okay, now the same measurements you will mark at the full length of the skirt, that is 10.5 down here, what you're gonna do is at the hips, this is where we measured the hips, you're going to go up and down 1 inch. You go downwards 1 inch, make your mark there. Go upwards 1 inch, make your mark there. Then join those two, right? So after that, you can join this one to full length. And then you're going to use the hip curve. But before we get to the hip curve, let's go back to the waist. At the waist here, you will go up by 1/2 inch. And then you're going to use your curve ruler to join this part here now, where you've gone up by 1/2 inch, to the start of the center of the hip. This is going to be the center front, okay? So you join those two like that. Okay, so now we are going to insert the dart. The dart you're going to, with your bust pan measurement, in my case it was 3.5, you measure it from the center front. So it is 3.5, so from the center front to where the dart is going to be, it's going to be 3.5 inches. So as you can see on my tape measure, that's 3.5. And then you measure 3.5 somewhere. And then you draw a line, okay, and join the two. Now the front dart is usually not as long as the back dart, so you would do around 4 inches. So downwards you measure 4 inches to this point here, and then the dart is going to be 0.5 inches on both sides, okay, 0.5 on the other end. So in total is going to be a full inch. That is why we added the 1 inch allowance. And then you join them with this point that we have drawn down here. So that is the dart, the front dart, okay. Well, it will do you well to remember that this is a center front, and the center front is usually on fold. So let me mark for you the unfold symbol, so you don't forget when you're cutting, because if you do cut two, it is going to mess your fabric. That is the symbol for unfold. So now remember this point here where we measured on from the hips 1 inch up and 1 inch down. You're going to connect this now with this curve ruler. So from the hips, now remember we are connecting it from this point where we went upwards by 1/2 inch, not from this point. So you connect that to this point, because if the curve goes all the way to the hip line, sometimes it protrudes on the dress and it looks like it's not following the natural body curve. So that this is what this does. So we join the two like that. Now the other thing is, this is the basic skirt block, then this is the front part, okay? If you want to do a pencil skirt, what you're going to do is come down here go inwards at the length of the skirt by 1.5 inches, okay, and join this from the hip line, okay. Now the same applies now when you're going downwards. That's why when I went 1 inch upwards, I also went 1 inch downwards, because I don't want the curve area to be poking. So I'm not going to start the curve from the hips area. I'm going to start it at this point here. I'm not going to start the measurement for the pencil skirt here. So I'm going to join from this point to this point. You watch and see. So you join those two like that. And then you come with your curve ruler and try to smoothen if it seems like, you know, it's protruding a bit. So now this is the full tutorial for the front part of a basic skirt pattern, okay. What you're going to do now when you are cutting your fabric, you are going to add the seam allowance for this skirt. On the waist, it's always going to be half an inch seam allowance. On the side, you do 1 inch seam allowance. At the bottom, you can do from 1 inch to 2 inches, depending on the kind of lining you want to do or the kind of finishing that you want to do on the skirt. So that's it for the front dart. So we are going to cut. I forgot to tell you that you need a scissors. So we'll cut this front part and use it to draft the back part. I'm cutting with the original basic block skirt that is not a pencil skirt. So as you can see, I'm using the outline that I've drawn. So now if you want the skirt to be pencil, this is how you will cut at this line, so your skirt is gonna be like this, okay. Now that one will give you a pencil skirt like that. You can see it is curving nicely. This will give you a beautiful skirt. So we are going to cut the waistline. So here you join this, you join this like this, and then you cut it like that for the dart area, okay. So there you go. This is the front part of the skirt. Now we will use the same to cut the back part. Okay, so now we are starting on the back of the skirt pattern. So what we are doing now, the only difference with the front pattern and the back pattern is that the front is on fold, the back is not on fold, because we need a zipper at the back. So you need to add allowance at the back. In my case, I've added 2 inch seam allowance, as you can see. So now I measure 2 inches all the way down and then draw a line downwards, okay. After measuring the 2 inches upward on the upper area, I will still leave 1 inch like I did before on the front skirt. So what I will do, I will use the front to cut the back. So I will just place the front skirt pattern on the back pattern, and then I will align the front of the skirt with this zipper line here and pin it. If you don't have pins, you can use some weights. Just place something heavy, just to hold down the paper so it doesn't move. Okay. Then what you're gonna do is that you're just going to mark the hip line here. That's why it tells you where the hip line is. And then after that, you simply cut out the pattern. Another thing that is important is that you need to mark where the dart is, okay? And then I can just use the same pins to mark this point of the dot here. So I can transfer this dot to the back to make my work easy. I will extend this then basically that's it for the back pattern. You just need to add the zipper at the back, the zipper allowance at the back, and then you cut it off. So here you go. So it seems like I cut the points where I'd marked the dot. Let me see if they still show. So I'll just do this, mark the dot there, mark another one there. And then this hip area, the time I can see the little mark there. Show me the hip line. So now I'm done with the front part, so this one I don't need it anymore. So I'm gonna remove the pins. So now this is the front, the front now. That one we are done with. So this is the back. So what you will just do is this point that we marked here, just join it with this point, show you the hip line, okay? And this part is the waist area. Remember that point now the only difference now again with the back is that you will extend the dart downwards by 1 inch. There is more. The front we had measured the dart to be 4 inches. This one we're going to measure it to be 5 inches. So here you go. Now you will join this one. This point, if you measure it, is exactly as the front. 0.5 one side, 0.5 the other side. The full dart is gonna be 1 inch and 5 inches long. So you join those two parts. Now that one, my dear, is a full skirt tutorial. I've remembered another thing is, if you want to do a pencil, the same thing we did for the front, you do it for the back. Just come inwards, 1.5, mark it here, and then you join it at this point that we had marked. That was one inch downward from the hip line, and join that with the at the point at the full length of the skirt. So if you wanted to do a pencil skirt, you will fold it at this area. You will cut this at this area. This one will not be necessary for you if you are doing a pencil skirt. But if you are doing a normal skirt that is not pencil, like me, you are going to use this. That the measurements at the bottom, full length of the skirt, round measurements, are equal to the measurements at the hip line. Thank you for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Bye. Enjoy yourselves.